I understand the motive of the NoFap thing, and because I think reducing it is very significant. I'm very observant of my own mental health, as you can imagine. So I'm very interested in what affects it, what helps it. And I know going periods of time, 5 to 7 days without any masturbation is very good for my head. But I also know that it's an urge the body has, and it doesn't always need to be sex, and inevitably it's probably not always going to be sex for the mass. So I think it's much more about it not being connected with porn than if it's... Because in the period of trying to stop watching porn, I would go through prolonged periods of not watching it, and I still masturbated when I watch porn, and then sometimes I'd be like, oh, I really want to watch some porn, so I'd watch some porn, and then it would always be in the next day, I always observe like my drive and these kind of things, and it'd only be the porn that would be the days I'd feel really bad. It wouldn't just be the days that I masturbated. So I think an initial period where you do nothing for 5 to 7 days would be great, and you just will experience a surge in energy because you'll be like, wow, I don't normally do this, and it changes you hormonally. And then after that, beginning to get used to just like a less frequent dose, and then also beginning to utilize the imagination a lot more. And just as we've talked about with everything, earning reward actually leads to us feeling our best, and using your imagination is effort, imagining some hot girl or guy, whatever you want to do in your mind. But the process of doing it leads to a much more satisfying experience ultimately. So what you're seeking to do in the masturbation actually is better.
Right.
So I think beginning to go in that direction is the best way to go.
Yeah, I mean, because my experience was the same as well. I discovered porn when I was pretty young, probably also around 12, 13, something like that. And I definitely overused for quite a long time. But also I had lots and lots of like shame and guilt associated with sex in general. And for me, I just noticed that I had to, or on the one hand, yes, definitely quitting the porn habit is definitely healthy, right? There's no doubt about it. But for me, I also had to go through a process of like learning a kind of a shame-free relationship with my own sexuality. And I don't think I could have done that entirely in the absence of masturbation, right?
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Because also, like, I'm not like a player, right? It's not like I'm constantly, it's not like I went through long periods of in my life where I basically didn't have access. I didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have sexual partners, and I'm not sure if I could have like resolved a lot of this stuff that, I don't know, this emotional baggage around sex by completely abstaining from everything.
Yeah, interesting. I do think it's a natural behavior, and I think it can be done in like a good way, like where you are connecting with yourself in a way that's good. And I think the shame thing is really significant because shame isn't a nice emotion. And one thing I definitely don't think anyone should feel any shame for is the fact you've been watching loads of porn, because it is just so deeply desired, that concept. It's so irresistible, porn, that I would have no judgment of yourself for watching any of it, because what human wouldn't really when it's an opportunity thing? It's free, it's fast to find, all of that sort of stuff. So I wouldn't say there's any judgment there. I think sometimes the shame comes in because progressively the tolerance grows, like it does with any addictive behavior, and you have to begin to watch more and more hectic things effectively. And I think the body and mind begins to think, I don't know if I really want to be observing those kind of things taking place. But I wouldn't feel shame in the porn. I just feel like recognition for yourself of recognizing the problem and thinking, I think this is a bit of a problem, but think it might not be making me feel that good, and just beginning to experiment with windows off it, see how you feel, and then begin to drive yourself forward with the great feeling that's taking place, rather than pushing yourself away with it with the shame feeling.
And I think that's also where you can see that porn, and I totally agree, right? It's like, hey, it's just one of these influences that hooks you, and it's so easy to get hooked on sugar, it's so easy to get hooked on alcohol, it's easy to get hooked on porn, it's easy to get hooked on social media, right? It's like, it's not like a weakness of character. It's just likely to happen, and the question is, what do you do with it now? So I like that you mentioned that. I think that's important. But yeah, you can see that it's like it becomes habit forming. You can end up spending hours a day on it, where it's like, well, you wouldn't be doing that if it weren't this weird. If it's not hijacking something inside of you, right? It's like nobody masturbates for 5 hours a day without without this kind of stimulation. But with it, that happens, right? People can become completely addicted to it. So again, I think there's an important distinction needs to be made between the habit of watching porn, the addiction of that, versus the habit of masturbation, which can be unproblematic. But yeah, again, it's like obviously also context dependent and all that.